Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on The Flash Season 7, as well as just the rest of the DC TV Arrowverse show things. So of course, 2020 is arguably the worst thing to happen since the rotten fish flavoured bean boozled beans. Like, anyone had those? They're disgusting, like really bad. But that's probably the best way to sum up 2020, just not that good. But of course, one thing that was affected by the events of 2020 was the entertainment industry, with movie and TV production brought to a standstill and, well, pretty much non-existence for a while due to the pandemic. Now, there is a sense of like normality creeping back into society in regards to the entertainment industry, as some productions have returned in America, but only a few, and they are sort of the test mouse or the canary in the coal mine, or gold mine, whatever you want to call it, to see whether going back to work in that sector is viable. But in regards to this video, of course, these restrictions and lockdown, what do you want to call them, have heavily affected the Arrowverse shows, and we actually have some updates to go over in this video in regards to those specifically. But of course, throughout the video, be sure to let me know your various opinions on this. Just what are your general thoughts? I'm actually intrigued to see what you guys have to say, whether you think it's too long, if you have some issues around them, let me know your various opinions about it. And of course, if you're going to enjoy the video and you found this informative, why not drop a like on it? It takes 2 seconds, helps out the channel. So yeah, the Arrowverse shows were shut down in, I think it was March, around mid-March, maybe a bit earlier, something like that. With those shows being The Flash, Supergirl, and Batwoman. Supergirl was on its finale and only had like a day or so left of filming, so they weren't really affected or impacted too much. But Batwoman and The Flash were, of course, shut down with like about 2 or 3 episodes left to film each, which resulted in a cut down of episodes and a bit of a weird wrap up to the season, mainly for The Flash, as it just sort of ended. While Batwoman did get the Bruce Wayne cliffhanger, so hey, they got that. But of course, Legend of Tomorrow and Black Lightning had finished much earlier in the year, so they were sweet. I think this Black Lightning had already aired its entire season, and Legends had finished like 2 or 3 months before the thing even happened, so they were all sweet. But since then, there has been discussion and just overall predicting as to when the shows would return to filming, with some quote-unquote analysts who were saying not until beginning of next year, which was insane and pretty much showed that they knew nothing. And then there were predictions for pretty much every other month after July, and including July. So July, August, September, and October were the ones usually brought up, but for the most part, I guess the majority of people were falling on around the end of July to August and September, those 2 to 2 and a bit months. But now we actually have an answer as to when roughly the shows are going to come back in regards to filming. We don't have like an exact date like April the 1st. I'm not saying April Fool's just for the meme, but like April 21st. We don't have an exact date in regards to that, but we have a rough date timing sort of thing as to when the shows should come back in regards to filming. And there are also added questions along with this that we will go over after that initial reveal. And this information and like tidbits, if you want to call it, is coming from a couple of the actors from the Arrowverse shows, one from Batwoman and the other from the new show of Superman and Lois. So Cameron Johnson, who plays Luke Fox on Batwoman, was asked about the shooting of Batwoman roughly, and he did reveal that Season 2 will begin shooting in the fall, which month-wise is September through to November. Now, there was a little talk about, okay, maybe that just has to do with Batwoman, because of course they have to recast the character, so maybe that's just when they're going to start. However, this does line up with what had been said about a few days earlier, I think it was, by Bitsy Tulloch, Tulloch, however you want to pronounce it, who plays Lois Lane in the Arrowverse, and of course on the new show of Superman and Lois, who said in an interview or like podcast thing that they were looking to start filming again in September. Well, that's when they're set to start filming again. That's when she's been told. Which it does seem will be the same for all the Arrowverse shows, including The Flash. However, this would exclude Supergirl, who looks to still be aiming for a late October start, or possibly November due to Melissa Benoist's pregnancy and maternity leave. But of course, what Bitsy says in regards to starting in September lines up with what Cameron said in regards to starting in the fall. But you might be wondering, like, hold on, why are they not filming until September when it looks like stuff will start filming like around late July and through August for a lot of other things? Well, from the sound of things, that's when the Arrowverse shows and most of major Vancouver stuff was set to start filming. However, a couple of spanners got thrown into everything in regards to the preparation for the upcoming seasons. The first of these for some of the shows would revolve around the cast as well as the crew for the shows, and making sure, I guess, that they're happy, but also that they're not being too hard on them in regards to workloads, you know, as they come back into filming. And the main thing I attach to this is that it seems that the whole, quarantine or self-isolation thing will still be happening when you travel internationally. So you have to be quarantined for 2 weeks in a hotel or your own house, depending on if you actually live there or not, once entering or leaving a certain country, and you can't go out and go to work, go to the shops and everything. You have to be like self-isolated. And seeing that pretty much all the cast is coming from the United States into Canada, this would have to happen, especially because they're coming from the United States, which is like Corona City. And I still see this happening from September through to probably the end of the year. So giving the cast and crew from America as much time as possible to spend with loved ones or just in their hometown, because they'll still be able to go out and about, obviously, but once they hit Vancouver, they have to be that 2-week period and they won't be able to come back for a bit. Just doing all that before coming back, going to Canada to film would be good, as they won't be able to go back home for a couple of days here and there between filming, because as I said, they'll have to self-isolate for 2 weeks regardless. They won't be able to do what they used to do. So that has to be kept in mind, and I'm sure the cast, and I guess if some crew does have to go international to go to Canada, they would be thinking that at the same time as well. If anything, what you're probably going to see is that usually if someone would have like a husband, a wife, or a girlfriend or a boyfriend that lives in America and they'd fly, here and there, they'll probably end up having that significant other maybe move up to Vancouver with them for that period of time if they're allowed. But the second and major thing for filming, especially for the studios, in this case Warner Brothers and the various producers, is that apparently insurance providers are not willing to cover production in studios that's a big if there is another corona-related shutdown. So there's a spike, they have to shut down everything, which is very unlikely. They're saying like once filming starts going in, they're actually finding it very, 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 very unlikely that they'll shut down again, just because it's so costly. But insurance providers would be hesitant in like covering for them. And the producers obviously don't want to take on that risk, starting it all up and then it gets shut down. Wow, that'd be very, very annoying. So giving an extra amount of time to sort that out would be at the top of their list. But there is also a chance that the Canadian government could insure them or would insure them, which, seeing that the entertainment business is very important to that area, specifically of Vancouver or British Columbia, this could be a very likely scenario to happen. But that would probably be a solution that they have to wait on for a bit and see how local filming or smaller international production filming or production and filming goes before September rolls around when they are looking to film. So they would probably have to test them out, and then they could be in line for that insurance from the government if needed. But there are a couple of questions that also go along following that. The first one, will the shows still make their premiere date? So for those that don't know, there's still a lot of people that don't know. I tweeted out this information about looks like they're going back to filming in September on Twitter, and someone's like, oh, well, does that mean they won't premiere in October? And I was like, well, obviously they're not going to get everything out in a month. But a lot of people hadn't heard the news that the shows won't come back till late January for next year. At the moment, they're scheduled to come back in that last week of January, usually when you get a mid-season. The shows come back from mid-season, or just get a mid-season premiere for a show like Legends or something like that. That's when they're scheduled. If they start filming in September, easily, they could start filming in November and hit that. They'd easily hit that late January thing, so there's no worry around that. And let's be honest, they're not going to get pushed. There's too much money in this. There's too much money. They'd film freaking on Zoom if they had to. They'll get stuff out, so don't worry about that late January premiere date. That's sweet. They pushed it back for this specific reason. There was still talk that they were going to make that October thing, but obviously this was a big issue in regards to were they able to start in August or even late July, and this is throwing the spanner in the works. So the late January was their backup, which they took at the first possible stage. So they took the backup straight away, rather than even risking October. So they'll be sweet. The next one, will the shows still have full seasons? So for those that don't know, the CW president, Mark Pedowitz, said that they're aiming to do full seasons. That's still on the board. So Flash 22, I guess Batwoman Season 2, I guess Supergirl would not get anywhere near that because they're going to have a late start anyway, so they wouldn't be aiming for that. But Superman and Lois, like 22 or 20 or something like that. Various shows like that, are they aiming for full seasons? It depends how long it takes them to film episodes now with the filming restrictions. If it's not that much, it adds like a day or two to filming, then that's not too much of an issue, especially if like the people are going to be in Vancouver anyway and they can't fly home, so there's not much break in regards to that. So I could still see them aiming for full seasons. I think they definitely want Flash and probably Superman and Lois to at least go for the full seasons, because that's going to be their big their bread and butter for next season. But the other shows, they might not try overly hard to hit that margin or hit that amount, but for Flash and Superman and Lois, I can see them definitely trying as hard as they can to get that full season. But for the other shows, I don't know. And the last question, which is actually one that I don't know if a lot of people have thought about, and I think this is actually one of the bigger issues that the new seasons will face, and that's no guest stars. One thing that you always get in the shows is that you'll get like a villain of the week or something like that, or just a returning character. Like, I know people won't like this example, but like Amunet Black, you'd get Amunet Black coming back for an episode in the season or something like that. You're probably not going to be able to get that until maybe the end of the season, when I think that quarantine period will be over. So once we get to like 2021, maybe like, I don't know, February, March, April, that will probably be lifted, so they could be guest stars then. But at least for the first half of the season, I would say roughly, I wouldn't be expecting any guest stars unless they're actors that live in Vancouver. So that's where they'd have to pick them out, as people that are all from Canada in general. So Canadian actors to be the guest stars. That's probably what you're looking for in regards to guest actors, which were the case, like I'd say, a decent amount of time, but not a lot. Like a lot of them would be known actors from America. So that's one big thing that's going to be affecting at least the first half of the season. And another thing that'll be affecting the first half of the season is probably smaller to like non-crowd scenes. So you won't be getting like big crowd scenes, everyone running down the street or something, because social distancing, they'll have to enforce that at least, as I said, for the first half of the season. Once we get into 2021, they'll probably lift that. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see how it goes. It's going to be interesting to see how they handle it. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all to go over from the video. If you enjoyed it, it would be awesome if you could drop a like on it to show your support. If you found it informative, do the same, obviously. Let me know your various opinions in the comments section down below around all of this. Do you have any more issues that you have attached to this? If you do, let me know in the comments. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. And I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.